It's May 21st, and I'm so excited to finally be planting some plants out in the garden. I was hoping to do this a little bit sooner, but we got a little bit of a cold snap, so I had to wait for that to pass. But now we've got beautiful temperatures, and I think we're safe to go. So today I'm planting out dill, my peppers, tomatoes, and tomatillos. I'm just planting one dill plant. Really, that is more than enough. I really only use it for making cucumbers, so I use very little. The only thing I'm planting in this bed right now is this dill. I do plan on putting some other herbs in here, specifically basil and cilantro, but I'm still working on hardening them off, so that's not going to happen right now. The other half of this bed, I'm hoping to be cut flowers. I did a little bit of chaos gardening, put some seeds in, and I'm hoping I get something to germinate. On the trellis, I sowed butterfly pea seeds on both sides of this trellis. This is kind of my experimental trellis. I'm hoping for this to be covered in beautiful butterfly pea flowers, and the rest of this bed is going to be my peppers. All right, I am starting off with my peppers. The first pepper I'm planting is called Canary Bell Pepper. It's a sweet pepper. The way that I do my tags, I put a number on there. So this is number one. And then I just make a list on a sheet of paper, just like this. I know you can't read it in this video, but to me, this is the best way to do plant tags. I can reuse the tags and not worry about planting the same exact variety as last year. I can just make a new list. So I bought this bell pepper. This is new to me. I've never grown this one before. It's from Baker Creek, but it's listed as 70 days and as an early producer. So in Utah, that really interested me. Last year, I grew California Wonder Bell Pepper, which is a pretty common one, but that took forever to ripen. I was in September when I was finally starting to get some bell peppers, and I only got a couple. So I was really excited to try a different variety, one that was listed as an early producer. So I've got high hopes for this one, so I'm planting 3 of these. The next thing I'm planting are lipstick sweet peppers. They are quite a bit smaller than something like a California Wonder Bell Pepper. I grew this plant last year though, and the plant just did so well. Not only did I get bell peppers early in the season, but I got a lot of them. So this year I decided I'm going to plant 3 of them. For some reason though, all my plants that I started inside this particular variety look kind of sad. They're on the smaller side, but I'm hoping they'll flourish once I get them outside. The next pepper that I'm planting are Corbaci sweet peppers. I'll be honest, from like a space efficiency type perspective, it's not the best thing because the peppers are kind of small. However, I grew them last year and I got peppers so early in the season and they're just so weird and interesting looking that I wanted to plant them again because I just knew how well they did. This is an heirloom from Turkey. They're long peppers that are curved and twisted. They look really interesting. So I'm going to plant 2 of these. Every year I always plant a few experimental things. So this is a sweet chocolate bell pepper. I have not had luck with this in Utah. I have grown them before in Florida and they're okay. And I have seeds I figured I'd give it a try. I think I have tried growing these the past couple years, and I just don't have good germination rates. This one looks great actually, especially compared to some of my other peppers. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a try. I've only got one of these in the garden this year. The last row of peppers that I'm going to plant in this bed are my hot peppers. Now, I told myself I was going to cut back on hot peppers this year, but as I'm putting this together, I'm realizing I didn't really cut back. I'm putting in 3, which is definitely going to be more than I need. I have 2 grande jalapeno pepper plants and 1 tam jalapeno pepper plant. Both of these I grew last year and both did so well. I got so many peppers. I'm not really a spicy pepper type of person. I use them in my salsas, and I do freeze them to use in like chilies and soups, but even then I only put in like half a pepper. So the tam jalapeno is one I got because it's labeled as a mild jalapeno type. I'll be honest, I still thought it was spicy, but I'm gonna make sure I have one of those peppers in my garden this year. Next, let's plant the tomato plants. These have gotten so big, they no longer fit on my grow shelf inside, so I'm super excited to get them out in the garden. So I have 2 arched trellises that I'm going to grow 4 different cherry tomato varieties on. So there's going to be one on each side here. And then this bed, I just have a flat panel trellis. I'm going to put 2 tomato plants here. And here's my other arched trellis. Again, there's going to be a cherry tomato on each side of this trellis. And then in this garden bed, I am going to put in my paste tomato plants. And then over here in this garden bed, I'm going to have to take out these peas. I put them in March or April or so, and I don't have any peas, but they've got to come out. This is going to be 2 tomatillo plants over here. In this bed, I am planting a Moscow, Idaho tomato and an Abe Lincoln tomato. These are my slicers slash canning tomatoes for making sauces or diced tomatoes. I'm not really experimenting this year as far as my paste and canning tomatoes go. I grew all these varieties last year and they all did so well for me. They produced so much that I'm just growing the same ones again this year. The Moscow, Idaho tomato I got from Snake River Seed Cooperative based out of Idaho. They specialize in offering seeds that do well in the Rocky Mountain West region. So I wanted to experiment with having seeds that do well in this climate. In addition to getting seeds from Baker Creek, I just don't know if those are going to do well or not. They're not necessarily adapted to my climate, but I do like to try different things and figure out what does well. But I want to have both. I want to have varieties that I think will do better this climate, and then obviously have some experimentals. So this is one that just does so well. According to the description on the website, it says this was almost lost to the ether, but for a Utah gardener who kept it as his main canning tomato. Okay, I decided I'm going to plant my Abe Lincoln on the other side of the trellis. It just seemed like they would have more space that way. So when it comes to planting tomatoes, you can dig the hole pretty deep. You can bury a tomato plant. That's totally fine. The plant it'll grow roots out of the stem where it touches the ground. I just chop off the bottom sets of leaves just like I did there, and I just drop the leaves on the ground, totally fine, and put the tomato plant in. on my arched trellis, I am planting a Sweetheart cherry tomato and a Dr. Carolyn cherry tomato. I think these will look so cool on a trellis. One side is going to be yellow and the other side is going to be a bright red. I think it'll look really cool. The Sweetheart cherry is a new to me tomato. Kind of experimenting with this variety this year. The description on the Baker Creek website lists it as having a berry-like flavor, so that piqued my interest, so I decided to try it out this year. The Dr. Carolyn tomato is a yellow tomato. It's kind of a tried and true for me. I have grown this one for the past few years. It is super prolific. It's kind of crazy how many I get. They're so beautiful and they taste like candy. Okay, now it's time to plant my paste tomatoes. These are both determinate style tomatoes, so I don't have a trellis over here, but I will use tomato cages, but not the cheap $5 super flimsy ones. Honestly, they are a little pricey at 20 bucks, but they're super thick cages and they stand up, they're sturdy. I don't worry about them falling over. So I am planting one Roma tomato and one, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but Napoli tomato. It's a paste-like tomato that I think I got from M.I. Gardner. Now, a lot of people say that Roma tomatoes don't do well in Utah, that they're more prone to blossom end rot. I have had an issue with that, I think once before, but for the most part, my Romas have been pretty healthy. So as long as that's the case, I'm going to keep planting one. But that is why I have another variety as well, just in case. Both of these tomatoes did amazing for me last year. I got so many tomatoes off each plant. I made so much sauce. So yeah, I am planting them again this year. The last two cherry tomatoes I'm going to plant is a Woolly Kate tomato and German lunchbox. Now, they're looking a little bit sad right now. They're kind of droopy. The soil in their containers was a little dried out, even though they had water for the roots to drink. But once I get these in the ground, they'll perk up. Tomatoes are some of the most robust plants I've ever worked with. They can look sad, but once you give them what they need, they can just cheer right up. And probably for a couple days after getting these in the ground, they're probably gonna look sad. But then they perk up after a few days, and it's really awesome to see. So I originally was trying to scale back the number of tomatoes that I was gonna plant this year because I was swimming in tomatoes last year. I was actually only going to plant two cherry tomato varieties this year. So I decided to ditch black strawberry tomato, and I was originally going to ditch one of these, which is a German lunchbox, which is kind of a larger, it's more like a grape-sized tomato. However, I got a tomato variety from Baker Creek as my free seed, the Woolly Kate tomato, which is the other one I'm planting on this trellis, and it looked really cool. It looks really interesting. The colors, the description sounded interesting, so I decided that I wanted to plant it, which means I had to pick a fourth cherry tomato variety to accompany it on the trellis, right? So I brought back the German lunchbox tomato. So Those are the last two cherry tomatoes that I am going to be planting in my garden, and I'm sure once again I'm just going to be swimming in tomatoes. The last thing that I'm planting today are my tomatillos. So unfortunately, the peas have got to go. I'm just cutting them at the base, and then I'm just going to leave the leaves in the garden bed. I have no luck with cooler season crops like peas, brassicas, lettuce. It just seems like the shoulder seasons are too short here. If my garden was larger, I think I could just let these keep going until it just got too hot. But I don't have enough space, so yeah, they've got to go. The last thing I'm planting in my garden today are my tomatillo plants. I've got two here. This one right here is looking kind of sad. The leaves look like they're already being eaten by something, but I'm hoping once they're in the ground and have a little bit of time to acclimate that, I'm hoping they do well. I've never grown tomatillo plants before. I'm not really sure how they grow, honestly. I'm hoping it makes sense to have this trellis here and have them grow up the trellis. But yeah, I love salsa verde. I don't eat it often, but every time I do, I'm like, wow, I want to make my own. So this year I'm trying tomatillo plants in hopes that I can make my own salsa verde. After all my plants are in the ground, I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle some fertilizer on each plant. I've got a basic tomato and vegetable fertilizer. Anything with like kind of lower numbers, I feel like is something that I personally look for. This particular bag that I'm using calls for a tablespoon of fertilizer per plant. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do, and then I'll water that in. The last thing that I'm going to do is set up a fabric tunnel for my pepper plants. It's going to potentially get under 50 degrees tonight, and it's probably okay, but I haven't exposed them to that low of temperatures yet, and peppers are the most tender plants that I have out here. So this is just a better safe than sorry kind of thing. So I just take these 2-foot sections of rebar and put one in each corner of the bed, just like this. And then I take sections of PVC pipe. I'll be honest, I'm not sure if it's 3/4 or 1 inch, but I slide it over the rebar, bend it, and this is really hard for me to do one-handed, but slide it over the other piece. Okay, yeah, I had to put it down for a second. And that's what it looks like when the PVC is over the rebar like this. And then I use these metal clips to hold the fabric on. So I take my fabric and put it over the pipes just like this. It's folded over and imperfect, but it's totally fine. It's just for one night while we have kind of some cooler temperatures and just for the first night out in the garden. This other bed, this has my onions that I planted out a few weeks ago. And in the green stock over here is where I put my extra plants. So I put some onions in the top. We'll see how they do. And in the other pockets, I'll put my extra pepper plants that weren't able to fit in the garden beds. And that's it for today. I still have melons and cukes I'll do on another day, but thanks for joining me in the garden today.